What if I told you that most of the metrics that we're all reporting on as marketers are frankly a thing of the past? Today, I want to break down how to measure ROAS, my favorite term, that actually makes sense. I'm going to give you some of my personal CMO hacks. You may agree or disagree with them. I want to hear it. The first topic I was thinking we should talk about is email. I'm a big fan of email marketing right now. I was on um a vendor call, and it like blew my mind that this vendor was reporting performance based on delivered emails. Okay, let's break this down. I do not care how many emails you deliver. I care, obviously, as the marketer, how many of them converted into a sale. Now, I get it. The vendor's going to say, oh, I can't control that. I can control getting your product or service or your email in front of the eyes of the ICP that you're after. All right, fair, fair, fair. So let's compromise here, right? What is a good metric to look at when it comes to email? Open up Excel, ladies and gentlemen, or a Google Doc, depending if you're a millennial or Gen Xer. You can hit me up in the chat. Are you Excel or Google? I like both for different reasons, but we sidebar. Let's get back to the focus topic here. Column number 1, how many emails were delivered, right? Around the geo fence of the area you're trying to target. How many emails were delivered? The next question, and maybe a more important metric, is what was the open rate on those emails? Because just because you delivered an email doesn't mean that someone saw it, right? So I'm in this vendor call, and the vendor's like, oh, the ROAS was, 15x. But they were doing it based on matchback data, right, of revenue against emails delivered. Well, hold on a second. Do you know that those people opened those emails? Let's look at the open rate and recalculate the people who saw the email. So if you're not doing this right now when you're evaluating email campaigns, baby, you got to add another column to your sheet. So column number 1, total emails delivered. Column number 2, open rate. Get that from your vendor. Column number 3, a bad boy calculation of that open rate against that email delivered. That is your new base, right? Now, based on those numbers, that's when you match back to your sales data and calculate ROAS. All right? So if you're evaluating email marketing, I got to tell you, you got to take those delivered numbers down to what is the open rate, how many emails were seen, and then calculate your ROAS. So it's about the click through to the conversion is the smarter metric than the hype metric, which is emails delivered. Because who freaking cares how many emails were delivered if they weren't seen and action wasn't taken? So that's my first one. I had to soapbox on the topic for a minute on email. Let's move on to the next one, which is top of funnel. Now, on top of funnel, tofu, as we like to call it. By the way, I really don't like tofu. I'm really curious how many people here are fans. Like, how do you make tofu work? It's so spongy. I know it's packed with protein, but it's not very good. Why was I talking about tofu? Oh, because top of funnel, right? So, what are some of the hype metrics when it comes to measuring, let's call it paid video and paid audio, right? Paid video would be TV, streaming video, connected, addressable. We're going to put that all in a top of funnel awareness tactic, right? Radio, terrestrial, sponsorships, streaming audio. I just call that all paid audio. So both of those kind of lumped together. You hear a lot about CPP, cost per point. It's more expensive to buy um, a game. I'm from San Francisco, go Giants. Um, a Giants game than it is to get a 6 a.m. morning news TV spot, right? Same thing with radio. Like a morning drive is going to be more expensive than middle of the day, right? Because more people are hypothetically watching at those times. Not hypothetically, they are more people watching at those times. So the cost per point, the cost per rating point goes up the higher the profile, the content, right? Or more viewed or watched. But here's my problem with cost per point. It doesn't really, as a marketing person, it doesn't really tell me if it's a quality conversion impression. So I think looking at CPP and cost per thousand CPM, eh, it's a good like pulse check. Like, am I getting enough impression load to move the needle in building awareness for my brand or for my product or service? But it's kind of overrated, honestly, at this point. It's sort of table stakes, as they say, right? These are things that, yeah, whatever, but it's not the main thing we should be using to measure the effectiveness of top of funnel tactics. So ROAS, right, return on ad spend, is a much better metric. So if I delivered this impression or this video or this piece of audio content to a home or a person, did they take an action on it, right? Now, I know you guys are going to hit me up with the debate of, well, Nicole, you can't really know for sure if that specific view created that action. As you've watched in some of my other videos, 21 touches to convince and get a consumer to take an action on something. Unfortunately, our bottom of funnel tactics, BOFU, like Google, PPC, stuff like that, get the credit for our top of funnel work, right? Ladies and gentlemen, so frustrating. Got to give it to Google, man. They love to take credit for all the efforts at the top of the funnel. But where was I going with that? Um, the cost per point and the cost per thousand metrics are important kind of table stakes, but the ROAS, return on ad spend, right, is a more critical piece. So how do you calculate it? You need to have a solution in place to optimize and match back the impressions that you're getting from top of funnel to the end sale or action. And it's possible to get, okay? Particularly with streamers. There are also attribution players I should mention, like, and no, I'm not sponsored. They're not, I probably should get them to like give me a promo code or something like that. But I recently looked at a tool called Samba, SAMBA. It's a great optimization tool if you're buying enough impressions in an interconnect or a larger DMA, designated market area, for radio and or TV, for example. You can see where the duplication is across your impressions, and you can optimize in real time. So that is one maybe more relevant modern tactic to be looking at to measure the effectiveness of top of funnel. The second piece is, in my world, I do a lot of retail marketing, right? So brick and mortar stores are trying to get foot traffic or door hits to their locations. That's my job as the marketing, chief marketing officer, is to get people into the locations. So another way to do that, to understand if those things are working, is to look at the footfall, right? The footfall or the door hits, the attribution of you delivered this impression and it created this, they entered a geofence around a location and they went shopping or bought something there, right? So a lot of times that's referred to as matchback data, right? So you want to ask your vendors, like, do they have a matchback solution? You'll see this more commonly in the streaming space. Your Hulus, your YouTube, you can see it in Google, in the Google Ad Planner. If you're running a youtube.com campaign or YouTube Live TV, If you have your Google set up properly, you can look at the match back, the ROAS, the return on ad spend of the paid effort for video against actual sales or revenue, which is pretty cool. So I mentioned Samba. A footfall provider that you might want to look into is called Foursquare. You might have heard of it. They have the little machines when you buy your coffee and you tap your card and you've seen the Foursquare. They have a lot of great first party data and they can fence locations and see if people entered them. And then you can tag your creative, right? Your top of funnel creative. And I actually recently found out you can tag outdoor, so billboards. You can tag um, video campaigns like cable TV, broadcast TV stations, and also like addressable streaming video as well. And what I really like about that tool is it combines all of your assets at the top of the funnel into one ecosystem to measure impact and optimize strengths. So let me just summarize. When it comes to top of funnel, I think out with the old is just looking at CPP and cost per thousand. Those are table stakes. What we need to be shifting towards is matchback data, ROAS, return on ad spend, and evaluating and optimizing top of funnel with those metrics. So we talked about email marketing. We talked about top of funnel tactics like TV and radio, some of the hype metrics like CPP and ratings, and in with the ROAS matchback data. Social media. So much hype on this topic, so much nonsense, right? I'm here to tell you it's not about follower count. That's right. You don't need to go get some fancy ass celebrity influencer and get 50,000 followers to move the needle. If you start, checking the Wi-Fi's and Googling, using your chat GPTs, marketing friends, and look at what's trending right now, hyper local's where it's at, right? Why? Because people who are in your actual market using the products and the service, the everyday Joes, if you will, are the ones that consumers see as more credible, right? So the better metric to consider when it comes to social media is engagement rate. And I talked about this last week with my buddy Scott when we were talking about influencer marketing. You want to be after engagement rate. If you have 10,000 followers, but you're averaging a 2 to 3% engagement rate, that's great. What is the engagement rate? Engagement rate means for the likes and comments and interactions in your posts, what percent of your follower base is engaging with the actual content? The algorithms, the meta algorithms, if you will, they will favor engagement and help you reach more of your follower base if you have more engaging content. So the reality is with social media, the hype metric is follower count. The reality is that followers don't pay the bills, ladies and gentlemen. What you want to track instead is engagement rate, engagement to action. So are they taking action on the content? Are they commenting, clicking, sharing, and ultimately buying? Now, ROAS is obviously the overall theme of today's session is what is the ROAS, return on ad spend? No matter if you're doing email, no matter if you're doing TV and radio or social media or something else, outdoor billboards, you got to know what the ROAS is. In fact, I was even working on something yesterday for like a guerrilla event marketing. And the CEO's like, well, what's the ROAS on that, Nicole? And I'm like, so glad you asked. If our average day has 50 door hits, let me look at my notes right here. If our average day has 50 door hits, then, and I do like a pop-up event at that store, I'm expecting a 2x increase in follower count, in traffic, right? Then my 50 customers now turns into 150. Well, if I know my close ratio is 20%, right? And I know my average transaction price is $300, I can actually calculate the potential revenue of that event against the cost to host it. And that, my friends, is the ROAS, right? Return on ad spend. So when you're looking at different channels, I highly encourage you to lean on your providers to ask not just for basic metrics like how many emails did you deliver, what was, the CPP or the CPM, but what was the bottom line impact to sales revenue, or in the case for my professional service clients like my lawyers and my doctors, what did it do to the call and appointment set? So there you have it. I know there's a lot to talk about today. I really wanted to spend some time on these metrics to help my marketing friends and owners and business leaders understand what they should be asking for when they're talking to when you're talking to different vendors. So let's recap. The metrics that matter aren't the ones that make you feel good, right? Like, oh, I got a lot of emails. They're the ones that actually are attached to real outcomes. So if you have a friend or a colleague or a business owner that needs to hear this, feel free to tag them in this video on YouTube or LinkedIn so they get a chance to watch this. Until then, make it a great one, and thanks so much for talking.